This wasn't a fighter. It wasn't a bomber. It was the SR-71 Blackbird, the jet that rewrote aerial reconnaissance forever. Sleek, Mach 3.2, and nearly invisible to radar, it outran missiles and outraced destiny. Its titanium skin heated to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. Its J-58 engines burned a custom fuel so exotic it doubled as a hydraulic fluid. First flown in 1964, it broke every speed and altitude record within months, and has held them ever since. In every test flight, it shattered speed records and left engineers scrambling to keep up. This is the story of the untouchable Blackbird. After a U-2 spy plane was downed over the USSR in 1960, the CIA needed something faster, higher, and stealthier. They turned to Kelly Johnson's Skunk works. Johnson had already built the A-12 ox cart, an 80-foot prototype that first breached Mach 3 in 1962. Lockheed's challenge: craft a production aircraft that could sustain Mach 3+, carry cameras, and survive the heat. The result was 85 feet of razor-edge titanium, sourced ironically from Soviet-controlled mines, an act of Cold War jiu-jitsu. Engineers invented slippery paint that radiated heat and left 1/16-inch gaps at rest so panels could expand mid-flight. They even designed the fuel, JP-7, with high flashpoint and special additives to lubricate pumps and seal the hull at 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Spy satellites were still years from delivering reliable high-resolution images, and every day without eyes on Soviet missile sites felt like a gamble with national survival. Congress responded with a blank-check black budget, letting Skunk Works operate at wartime speed. To cut drag, Johnson carved a long chine, an extended four-body edge that doubled as lift, giving the Blackbird its Cobra hood profile and a radar cross-section smaller than a Piper Cub. By 1964, Blackbird prototypes smashed altitude and speed records within their first 15 flights. Congress greenlit production not because it fit a budget, but because nothing else on Earth could touch it. The SR-71 cruised at Mach 3.2, over 2,200 miles per hour, fast enough that its shock waves glowed dull orange on the titanium skin. New York to London took 1 hour 54 minutes. At 85,000 feet, the pilots saw the planet curve under a cobalt sky. Speed bred heat. Panels lengthened 4 inches before snapping back on cooldown. Fuel leaked on the ramp to allow that expansion. Interception wasn't about dodging. Missiles simply ran out of propellant before closing. The power came from J-58 engines that morphed from turbojets to quasi-ramjets above Mach 3, bypassing more than half their airflow straight into the afterburner. Each start demanded a shot of triethylberine, a green flash hotter than a welding torch. On its 1990 farewell sprint, the Blackbird blasted Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. in 64 minutes, breaking 4 world records in one hop. In 3 decades of service, not a single SR-71 fell to enemy fire. Physics was its only armor. Piloting the SR-71 felt closer to spaceflight than flying a jet. Crews suited up in pressure gear hours early, breathing pure oxygen to flush nitrogen from their blood. After takeoff, a tanker topped the Blackbird with 15,000 pounds of JP-7. Throttles forward, the aircraft climbed in stair steps, accelerate, zoom, settle, until it leveled at 85,000 feet and Mach 3.2. Skin panels stretched 4 inches. Windshield temperature hit 620 degrees Fahrenheit, while cockpit air hovered near 100. The pilot guarded inlet temps. 10 degrees high triggered an unstart. A cannon shot bang as a J-58 flamed out. The reconnaissance systems officer juggled star tracker fixes and cameras sharp enough to read license plates from 15 miles up. Bank angles stayed below 30 degrees, cabin pressure at 3.5 psi. It was hot, loud, relentless, and the smoothest ride in the Air Force. At Mach 3, the crew outran sunrise, gathering intelligence enemies couldn't touch. The Blackbird's flight log reads like a guided tour of every Cold War flashpoint. In Vietnam, it traced the Ho Chi Minh Trail twice a week. Film reached Washington before the convoy dust had settled. Over North Korea, the jet crossed the demilitarized zone at dawn, triggering SAM radars but never their warheads. Each time the crew eased the throttles forward and watched Mach climb past 3.2, leaving the missiles coasting in thin air. During the 1973 Yom Kippur War, 2 SR-71s swept the entire Sinai in 8 minutes, snapping 500 feet of film that steered ceasefire talks that same night. In 1986, one aircraft circled Libya, photographing every radar site before U.S. bombers launched. Across 3,551 operational sorties, not a single Blackbird fell to enemy fire. It carried no weapons. Information was the payload, and sheer velocity was the shield. Proof that sometimes speed, not steel, wins the day. By the early 1990s, satellites were delivering imagery every orbit, and the Blackbird's upkeep was brutal. Titanium welds, custom JP-7, pressure suit overhauls, more than $4 million per airframe each year. Budget hawks in Congress called it a Cold War relic. On March 6, 1990, crew Habu-61 made a last statement. Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. in 64 minutes, setting 4 world records in one hop. It was a victory lap and a eulogy. NASA kept 2 jets flying into 1999 to study high-speed aerodynamics. Engineers still mine that data for today's hypersonic projects. The rest went silent, wings tucked under museum lights at the Smithsonian, the Intrepid, and Palmdale. None have been surpassed for speed, altitude, and stealth. The Blackbird retired undefeated, proof that even legends age, but records can stand forever. The SR-71 never fired a weapon. It didn't need to. Speed was the sword, altitude the shield, information the victory. More than 40 years later, its records still mark the ceiling of what air-breathing flight can do. I'm Mach Factor. If you want more stories of machines that bend physics and rewrite history, hit subscribe and stay tuned.